Hi, my name is Taylor Johnson, and I'm here to talk to you today about code switching and what code switching actually is. By the end of this presentation, I hope you have a better understanding of what code switching is, and also how code switching relates to the medical community, and some of the positives and negatives that code switching has. Before we can talk about how code switching specifically relates to the medical community or the positives and negatives that it has, we do have to talk about what code switching actually is. So code switching originally referred to people who switch between two or more languages, such as if you spoke both Spanish and English, you could talk, depending on who you were talking to, that's what language you would speak, such as if a patient came in and they only spoke Spanish, you would speak to them in Spanish, but if someone spoke mainly English, you would speak English to them. Code switching nowadays, though, more refers to the act of changing our behaviors, such as the way that we talk, the way that we dress, and the way that we act, based off the people we are around, and also to fit in with the dominant culture. Code switching is natural to an extent. I feel like that's how most things are in life, but as long as it doesn't, code switching can be extremely helpful, but once it reaches a certain point, it can be extremely mentally damaging, which we will get into more in a few more slides. Code switching is more common among minority groups, which personally I'm not surprised about, because people come from other countries and they'll come to America and they will try to kind of fit in and not stick out so much, so they'll code switch to align more with the dominant culture. Just as if I went to another country, I would probably change myself a little bit just to make myself fit in more and not stick out. As I said, people code switch to fit in more with the dominant culture, but people also code switch to get better medical treatment, get treated better by law enforcement, and to get treated better in the workspace. Code switching has both positives and negatives. Before we can talk about the positives and negatives, though, we do have to talk about some examples, and there are so many examples out there. There's thousands of them, but I just have a few here. So one example of code switching would be when people of color change their natural hair to a whiter hairstyle. So like if a person had very curly hair, but then they would straighten it every day so that they wouldn't get looked at weirdly in the office, that would be an example of code switching. Or like when people will come from other countries and they'll kind of have a heavy accent and they'll suppress it so that they don't get judged. That would be another example of code switching. One that doesn't just apply to people from other countries and can also apply to people in the dominant culture as well, which I know I've had to do this, is when you walk into a room and you kind of have to read it and see how the energy is. You wouldn't walk into an operating room and start blasting music and dancing, because the people in there need to focus and be quiet and calm, and they think you're crazy. But you also wouldn't walk into a party and be all sad and quiet and mellow, because it just wouldn't make sense. But yeah, so that would be an example. Another example that everyone can relate to is when you kind of change the way that you talk to sound more professional, such as how you'll speak differently when talking to a friend versus a boss. When you're talking to the boss, you'll use more big words and kind of make yourself sound more competent in a way, so that your boss will look at you highly, versus talking to a friend, you're probably more casual. Another big group that is affected by code switching is the LGBTQ community, as they are trying to find their place in life and a way to fit in and who they are as people. So one example of the LGBTQ being affected by code switching is when a non-binary person will dress more traditionally gendered in an office so that they don't get looked at badly or looked at weirdly. But yeah, as I said before, there are many positives and negatives to code switching. Some positives are it could make you seem more professional, like with that boss, or even with your coworkers or with the patients. You would speak differently than speaking to a friend. You wouldn't walk into work and probably start yelling y'all and ain't and all that kind of stuff, because it doesn't make you seem very professional and people might look down upon you. So if you do make yourself more professional, or even in the way you dress, like, you wouldn't walk in a baggy like sweatshirts and sweatpants with rips in them and all that kind of stuff. If you walk in looking professional and sounding professional, your boss will look at you better, your coworkers will look at you better, and your patients will even look at you better, and that will gain their trust more, and it can even get you that promotion you would like. Another positive is that it could get you better medical treatment, especially on the patient side, such as how people in other kind of cultures are a lot more reserved about certain subjects. So when they come into that emergency room with an issue, they'll kind of have to code switch a little bit into that more American dominant culture and go to their comfort zone to tell the doctor what's actually wrong. Even if it's not natural to them, they'll have to code switch so that they can get that treatment that they need, which could save their life. Our next point. And with this point, it could save your life, like with the code switching thing, because other cultures are more reserved, but it also could save your life, such as in situations with law enforcement. You're probably going to act a lot more put together with a cop when speaking to a cop, when a cop pulls up. And based off like how you act, it can decide life or death. Like, it can make you seem like less of a threat by code switching and acting that little bit more put together. So that is one good thing, like incredible thing. There are a lot of very bad negatives to code switching though, such as it could make you risk your true sense of self. And if you do that and lose your sense of self, you're going to have really bad repercussions from that, because you're trying to strive so much to fit in with these people and this culture, and you just don't know who you used to be. It's going to have lasting damages on you, and you're just going to feel lost and horrible, which will obviously impact your mental health. And so when a patient comes into the clinic with an issue, they just feel lost. This could be their issue. They could have code switched so much that they don't know who they are anymore. In conclusion, code switching has many positives and negatives, as it could probably get you that life-saving treatment, but it can also ruin your mental health and make you lose your sense of self. Code switching happens all around us and is incredibly common in the medical world, whether it be the doctors trying to fit in with their coworkers, or the patients who have to code switch that a little bit and go out of their comfort zone and tell the doctor what's actually going on with them. Code switching is most common in minority groups because they are trying to fit in with that dominant culture. And they will often suppress who they truly are as people to feel more accepted. Code switching can be natural and very helpful as long as it doesn't pass that certain point where it becomes incredibly damaging on your mental health. But yeah, so I hope you learned more about code switching from this presentation, and I hope it was helpful. Here are my sources that I used. But anyways, I hope you guys have an incredible day. It was amazing seeing you guys. Talk to you next time. Bye.